Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter a document into the record that's titled Overview and then frequently asked questions that initially appeared on Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's website and was submitted to NPR.
Without objection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate very much the opportunity to discuss this issue today of how we transition our communities to a so-called green economy. My state of Wyoming, as I'm sure our witnesses know, is the nation's largest coal-producing state. And we also know in Wyoming that coal is going to continue to be a crucially important source of baseload power for the nation, that the reliability is something that simply cannot be replaced, and that it's a national security issue in addition to an economic issue. And so my constituents are obviously very concerned about this notion that we're somehow going to transition over the course of 10 years here to, an economy that is entirely run on green energy. And certainly they have concerns about the fossil fuel aspect of that. But I have to say one of the issues that people are particularly concerned about is the extent to which we're no longer going to have air travel, apparently, according to some of the frequently asked question answers we've seen. So I guess I'd like to start by asking each witness to tell me exactly how they arrived in Washington, D.C. for this hearing. And it's just a one-word answer. And I'll start with you, Ms. Farley.
A big white pickup truck.
Truck.
Plane.
Air and Metro.
Well, thank you very much. And so I'd like to ask, I would assume that each of the witnesses who believes that we should in fact move towards net zero emissions would say that we ought to do so gradually, not suddenly. And so I would ask, and I'll start with you, Ms. Farley, if you could describe for me perhaps exactly how we'll do that gradually. I would assume we're not just going to wait 10 years and then all of a sudden tell people they can't fly, but that we'll be in a situation where over the course of the 10 years we would somehow gradually work our way out of air travel. And I would also have to guess that that would involve some sort of prioritization. So I assume even my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who support the Green New Deal and perhaps the witnesses who support the Green New Deal wouldn't advocate, for example, that we cancel things like, life flights. They wouldn't advocate that we immediately move away from being able to transport people who have, life-threatening illnesses by plane, but that there would be some other prioritization there. So, Ms. Farley, could you tell me exactly how the government should prioritize air travel and the gradual move away from all air travel?
I would depend on the FAA and other federal agencies that focus on air travel to tackle that question. The Green New Deal is a sweeping collection of recommendations and policies.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farley. So the FAA then, I would assume, I guess we're going to set up a situation where the FAA then can tell individual citizens which of their air travel is worthy and important and which isn't. And it would seem to me, I guess we would then have a situation where The FAA could say, for example, you know what, vacation travel, that's not essential. We got to make sure that we can do the air travel for the people that really need it, so no vacation travel. Would you say we're going to have some sort of a vacation commissar set up in the government to determine what kind of air travel makes sense and what kind doesn't? Ms. Schrader, maybe I'll go to you on that question.
With all due respect, I came here to talk about my community and how we have transitioned.
So you don't support the Green New Deal then?
Decimated by the.
Ms. Schrader, thank you. You don't support the Green New Deal.
I'm not an expert on the Green New Deal.
Okay.
The gentlelady yield for a correction on how she's badly mischaracterizing.
No, I won't yield, Mr. Huffman.
Mr.
Huffman, you had plenty of time.
This
Mr.
entire
Huffman,
line of questions.
I'd like to have my time restored, please, Mr. Chairman. So let me ask you then: are there any other witnesses on the panel who do support the Green New Deal? Nobody supports the Green New Deal on this panel. Interesting.
I support many of the policies and recommendations in the Green New Deal.
I see.
Specifically, the support to make sure that any climate solution strategy is centered in equity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Farley. I appreciate that. Reclaiming my time, I would just say that I think it's going to be crucially important for us to recognize and understand when we outlaw plane travel, we outlaw gasoline, we outlaw cars, I think actually probably the entire U.S. military because of the Green New Deal, that we are able to explain to our constituents and to people all across this country what that really means. And even when it comes down to something like air travel, which the frequently asked questions say they want to eliminate within the next 10 years, that means that the government is going to be telling people where they can fly to and where they can't. And I would assume, I guess that means our colleagues from California are going to be riding their bicycles back home to their constituents. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to go with mine. I'm going to yield the first 1 minute of my 5 minutes to Representative Huffman.
Thank you. It's not really enough time to fully fact check what we just heard, which was an entire line of questioning based on absolute hooey. I am co-sponsor of the Green New Deal resolution, and you got to read the resolution, okay? Not take extrapolations from some unofficial FAQs that actually were taken off an individual Congress member's website, because they do not reflect what's actually in the resolution. But the notion that any of us who are supporting the actual resolution, which you need to read, that we want to ban all air travel, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. None of us want to do that. I was just listening as the gentlelady said that we want to outlaw cars and get rid of the military. There comes a point where this type of questioning is so disingenuous and so completely disconnected from anything factual that there ought to be a mechanism to strike it from the record. So with that, I yield back.
It is Wednesday, the 13th of February of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh my, it's not just a fabulous egg dish with a lovely hollandaise sauce. It's also a veiled reference of getting rid of priests, like, Mike Pence. Mike Pence. Out there as the Grand Marshal of against anti-Semitism. My God. I mean, he's David Duke's lackey. Give me a break. Yeah, well, you're attacking Alana, then you're not going to get away with it. No, you're not. Accusing AIPAC of having, a few influences in D.C. is not anti-Semitic. It's a fact. I mean, give me a break. It's like saying the Koch brothers and the Petersons and et al. Have nothing to do with ALEC. That kind of political talk. Well, I got to tell you, if you call that political talk, then I suppose history is political too. And you would probably be right because, really, the winners make the history? No, they don't, but they can control it if we let them. And that's why we won't. Okay, well, we got lucky, at least some of us boomers did, took our education seriously. Well, quite a few of us. A few of us didn't. But we got lucky, all right? The democratization of education at that time was a grand thing. The middle class. Well, I mean, I mentioned about Albert Finney yesterday from the angry young men generation. He's an example of the lower classes getting educated and, doing great things in the world. And the reason being is, do you really want your Einsteins toiling away in the patent office forever? I mean, yeah, it's a good apprenticeship to show you, what we do with the great minds in, our world. But, Eric Hoffer, stevedore. Yeah, big brutish guy. Wrote every morning and every night. Well, that was devil spawn Liz Cheney. God, they're so craven when they lie. Just with impunity. Over and over and over and talking over the so-called experts at the panel. It's my time. Yeah, it's your time, baby. It's your time. Well, Green New Deal co-author Jared Huffman, as you can tell, was only given a minute to dog walk her over her Green New Deal lies, and he did, didn't he? Yes, he did. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The FBI announced a massive white supremacist gang bust, but Trump doesn't care. I mean, come on, when he finally issues a statement, he's gonna claim, well, there's some very fine people there. House Intel Chair Adam Schiff schooled Devin Nunes on why the committee's Russia probe never terminated, despite Nunes' efforts to quash it. And maybe Nunes might be under indictment soon, too. We'll see. And Chuck Schumer's plan to finally take down Mitch McConnell will be done backwards and in heels. After the break, we then move to the chef's table where an upstate New York high school principal was fired from her position after making critical comments about the MAGA-infused culture at her school. And Trump wants to gut housing for military families while also stealing money from disaster relief funds intended for California and Puerto Rico to pay for his wall. Look, why don't we just build the wall like Trump builds his tan? Spray it on orange. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At netrootsradio.com, you will notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln, so do engage there. She's of course she does have to pay the bills on her end to be able to live in her domicile, so she's not there 24/7. Of course not. Who is? But do engage there, and you will have fun and frivolity and information galore. If you would then look to the leftish from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the contribute button, and if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your recurring contribution keeps the lights on, the modems blinking in the proper order, and all that means is that the bills are being paid, and we're just sliding under the radar so Resistance Radio can keep resisting as the founders originally intended. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so by finding us at Netroots Radio. How easy is that? If you would like to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Justice Putnam, equally as easy. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. A very integral part to the show. It is a multimedia operation without the overhead projector, and if you're a boomer, you know exactly what I mean. You could follow the show on Twitter But you'll have to do it by finding us at Cookbook West, because for some reason I had to make it difficult by not paying attention. That's what happens. You live with your mistakes for a long time, if not forever, because you're not paying attention. Ooh, my. And podcasts of the show can be found by way of Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, iHeart, etc., 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 etc. Well, we took my mother yesterday for her initial doctor's appointment to start with a new doctor, which is actually her old doctor who's moved from one system to another. And quite a scandal here in this small town. Seems like he has his leaving that system has now caused an exodus of others to leave also because of the heavy-handed treatment and I guess just the abject profit motive of this particular medical system that dominates here in Southern Oregon. And they have a great facility. I like them, but as soon as Trump took over, they increased how many patients each doctor has to see in a particular time, which means that, you're denying services because that's how you make money. You deny services to people and get them out of the office, and it just became too overwhelming. And doctors' prime directive is to do no harm. And he found that these actions were doing his patients harm. Well, because of his exodus, just his, he took a lot of patients with him. And his announcement where he's hung up a shingle, I think that's how they put it. Maybe that's only for barristers. But regardless, when he finally announced that he was open for business and accepting patients, oh my God, he was deluged. But fortunately, my mom was put on the fast track, so that was a good thing. And of course, we had to fill him in on the passing of my son. And, it's my mom's appointment. So I might have, in the description of what happened and stuff, I might have maybe got a little bit too much counseling because he's not my doctor. But I'm there to help my mom and such. So, yeah, it was, kind of brought up a couple of memories just on the drive up or down to Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County, and then back. Just thinking that my son and I were going to be doing that together, and I don't know, it kind of made me sad. And I'm still having the daily ups and downs. I can't say that it's more frequent or less frequent. It just seems about the same since that terrible day, December 30th. And I hear that's probably will be the case. So, I really, 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 really do miss him. And so it goes, as Kurt Vonnegut would say. So it goes. All right, let's get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays, by the way. It comes our way by Alternate, with Matthew Chapman penning the piece. Yesterday, the Justice Department, I need to get a hold of Matthew and saying, I really have been cyber squatting on the Justice Department moniker for my music show and the general blog that I had been doing for a long time. He means the Department of Justice. Okay, well, the Department of Justice announced the arrest of dozens of white supremacists in a bust of a gang in Arkansas known as the New Aryan Empire. And when you look at them, you're thinking, master race? Not one of these again. Oh, my God. Because they're far from being a master. And I don't know, race? Well, they're suspected of being a racketeering organization. Do you think? The FBI made the arrest in connection with the Little Rock District offices of the DEA and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. According to the allegations in the indictment announced today, New Aryan Empire associates maintained their criminal enterprise by engaging in multiple acts of violence, including kidnapping and attempting to murder one informant, and stabbing and maiming 2 others suspected of cooperating with law enforcement, said Assistant Attorney General Brian Benskowski. I want to thank our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners for vigorously investigating this vicious criminal organization. I think they're called terrorists. The case, named To the Dirt, which is in reference to the National Aryans slogan referring to the rule that members must remain in the group until they die. Oh, Into the Dirt. Once you join, you never leave. Sounds like a mob organization, maybe a terrorist one too. And the investigation began in 2016 when the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms Group assisted the Polk County Sheriff's Office in a murder investigation. The murder involved members of the group, of the racist group, or the white supremacist group, an organization that began as a prison gang and has since expanded beyond the prisons. Investigators learned that several members of the group conducted meetings in Polk County and became involved in methamphetamine distribution. Tweakers! While justice is likely to be served in the case, Donald Trump seems wholly uninterested in giving law enforcement the specialized tools they need to pursue cases like this. In 2017, the Trump administration froze funding for DHS Counter-Violent Extremism program, which issues grants to communities to combat far-right and white supremacist extremism. The administration considered diverting these funds to counter Islamic extremism instead, and in 2018, the DHS revealed it has no plans to extend the program beyond this year when it runs out of funding. Homegrown right-wing domestic terrorism is a serious problem. In 2018, the far right was responsible for every extremist killing in the U.S. Trump has shown little concern for this danger, even going so far as to say that there are some very fine people on both sides of the 2017 neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, that ended with a deadly vehicle ramming attack in which Heather Heyer was murdered. Very fine people on both sides. I think he means there's some very fine people over here on the KKK, and there's some very fine people over here in the Proud Boy neo-Nazis. That's what he means by some very fine people. Alex Henderson, also of Alternet, brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A major turning point in Trump's presidency came on January 3rd of 2019 when a new Democratic majority in the House of Reps was seated. That majority is planning a lot of Trump-related investigations, including a Russia probe led by House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff, who stressed to Republican Representative Devin Nunes that the investigation never terminated. Schiff's exchange with Nunes was, according to NBC News' Mike Mamoli, occurred at a closed-door House Intel Committee meeting last week. Speaking to Schiff, Nunes asked the California congressman if the House Russia probe meets the committee requirement to notify the minority party when a new investigation is being launched. And Schiff responded, "In our view, Mr. Nunes, the investigation never terminated." Schiff added, the then majority's participation in the investigation did conclude, but we continued. In 2017, when Republicans still had a majority in the House under Speaker Paul Ryan, a House Intel Committee investigation of Russia interference in the 2016 presidential election was launched. the concerns of Democrats were marginalized in that probe, which was much more Trump-friendly than what Schiff has in mind for 2019. Schiff obviously has a much more comprehensive and in-depth investigation in mind, which he has made abundantly clear that he is happy to help Robert Mueller's Russia investigation in any way he can. Oh, horror of horrors. When the outcome of the 2018 midterms was still unknown, Schiff stressed that if Democrats did retake the House of Reps, the House Intel Committee's Russia probe would come back with a vengeance. We will be able to get answers the Republicans were unwilling to pursue, records that the Republicans would not ask for, Schiff told CNN back in October. Democrats, of course, retook the House, enjoying a net gain of 40 seats. Schiff, as predicted, was appointed chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and this time, its Russia probe will have a lot more Democratic input. Here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays is another article written by Matthew Chapman out of Alternate. Yesterday, Politico reported that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is working on a plan to oust his GOP counterpart, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Well, he's had many plans. Have they ever come to fruition? Apparently not, because Mitch McConnell's the longest-serving guy there and been there for a while. Well, according to Politico, Schumer met with Amy McGrath, a Marine veteran turned 2018 congressional candidate, at Democratic Party headquarters last month to pitch her on running against McConnell. McGrath listened and did not rule it out. The Democratic leader first contacted McGrath in December. McConnell, the longest-serving Senate GOP leader, is gearing up for a re-election fight and leaving little to chance. His political team has begun compiling Oppo research on McGrath and delving into tracking footage of her. On Wednesday, senior Republican Party officials involved with a pro-McConnell super PAC will meet in Washington to begin mapping out a potential campaign against McGrath. Well, Schumer and McConnell have long clashed as rival Senate leaders. Schumer's attempt to recruit a candidate to fight him is his latest and boldest blow yet. Now remember, McGrath was the first woman to fly an FA-18 in a combat mission for the Marines. First gained national notoriety for a political ad entitled "Told Me," which enumerated the class ceiling that she shattered as a woman in combat. Now, if she does throw her hat in the ring, McGrath will be in for a challenge. Her narrow loss against Andy Barr in a deeply conservative district revealed her to be a worthy opponent for any Republican, but McConnell, who has served in the Senate since 1985, will have the advantage of an extremely red electorate that presumably likes the power he brings to his state. And I might say might have the help of the Russians, too, because you know he does. Follow the rubles. Wherever you find the rubles, you'll find a lot of rubble. Well, McGrath does have one advantage. McConnell is not well liked by his constituents. In fact, he is the least popular currently sitting senator. But Putin loves him, And that's really all that matters. All right, let's get to our break. Then when we come back from the break, of course, we're going to go through weather from around the world. And we got weather here, and there's weather around the world, as there always is. And, of course, we're going to finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, All in the Family. The Oscar-nominated film Shoplifters, winner of the Palme d'Or at Cannes, certainly contains shoplifting, but it's about so much more. From award-winning director Hirokazu Koreeda, the film is an unconventional look at family and what it means to be one. Shoplifters is set in a part of Tokyo you won't see in travel brochures. When we first meet the Sumida family in their cramped apartment, we assign conventional roles to the members: man of the house for Osamu, grandmother for Hatsu, tween son for Shota, etc. These assumptions go by the wayside, however, as the onion of how they support themselves is unpeeled. Early on and pivotal to the story, Osamu and Shota bring home a young neighborhood girl named Yuri on a particularly cold night after finding her outside alone. After a few days, a statement in itself, she's noticed missing and it quickly makes the TV news. The Sumidas, aware, only half-jokingly rationalize that it isn't kidnapping because the child's family abused her and they weren't asking for ransom. It's clear they have other values. The Osamu-Shota, man-of-the-house tween relationship is interesting. We see them work a fairly professional shoplifting operation, quipping that food in a store doesn't belong to anyone yet, but their complementary emotional needs are quite clear. Eventually, the boys' moral conflicts accelerate a reckoning that all families must confront in time, that things change, as the grandmother figure presages in a beach scene where she covers age spots with sand. A struggle such as this between nobility and desperation could be a prescription for some heavy-handed art house preaching, but that never happens with Shoplifters. Its reflection is balanced with humor, and its kudos speak to its very human statement. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. For more than 100 years, this sound has been missing from New Zealand's forests.
It's like two stones being clicked together or two marbles being clicked together. It's a very simple call.
Oliver Metcalf, a conservation biologist at Manchester Metropolitan University, has studied the small bird that makes the noise, the hee-hee. By the 1880s, it was all but wiped out by rats and disease, which came along with colonists. But the hee-hee did manage to survive on a predator-free barrier island called Te Hauturu Otoi, and now they're being reintroduced to mainland New Zealand.
And they're going through the process of trying to restore the ecosystems they had prior to colonial settlement there. So they're bringing back the birds one by one.
But the dense forests and the birds' unusual behavior makes them tough to monitor.
They're very inquisitive. They love people, so they'll come and see you. If they hear you coming, they'll come and see you. But that means that you have a problem of knowing what they would have been doing when you're not there.
So instead, Metcalf and his collaborators from the Zoological Society of London use that distinctive call to their advantage, using an array of audio recorders to eavesdrop on 40 hee-hee birds reintroduced to the North Island's Rotokare Scenic Reserve. A month later, analysis of the calls revealed that the birds had abandoned some areas of the reserve and settled into others, suggesting they had begun to form territories, often close to water. The details are in the journal Methods in Ecology and Evolution. Metcalf says you could use the same concept to monitor all sorts of animals.
So whether that's a reintroduction of a small mammal or whether it could be how existing bird species respond to a housing development nearby or something like that, this process could be used to understand how those populations respond to changes.
Assuming, that is, they make some noise. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is an important message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. When it snows this winter, make sure you clear more than your driveway. Before you hit the road and before you get in the driver's seat, check to be sure that your vehicle's tailpipe is clear of snow. If the tailpipe is blocked, carbon monoxide, an odorless, colorless, and deadly gas produced by your engine can build up quickly inside your vehicle, poisoning anyone inside. To learn more, call 1-800-CDC-INFO. That's 1-800-232-4636.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Can a 1-year-old in diapers be expected to adequately represent him or herself before an immigration judge? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute, and that question really is not as insane as it sounds, because in 2018, that really happened. Happened because an immigration court, which is considered a civil proceeding in contrast to a criminal one, a person is not entitled to a court-appointed lawyer. If you don't have the money for an attorney, you're on your own. As Tova Indritz, in the recent edition of The Champion, the magazine of the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, wrote, this distinction of criminal versus civil actually makes little sense. You're entitled to have a lawyer provided if you are indigent and face any time in jail, but if you face almost certain murder if you're deported, then you're on your own to represent yourself in immigration court. There is a case pending in the federal courts that raises the issue whether children or persons who are mentally challenged must be provided with counsel in immigration court. But, as Indritz points out, even if that case should win, the larger injustice remains unsolved. Everyone in immigration court who faces deportation should have a lawyer. Justice requires no less. And every day in immigration courts across the United States, justice is denied. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The budget deal brokered by a bipartisan group of lawmakers appears to be headed to the president's desk, and Trump has signaled that he'll sign it, despite his earlier protestations.
I can't say I'm happy. I can't say I'm thrilled, but the wall's getting built. Regardless, doesn't matter, because we're doing other things beyond what we're talking about here.
$375 billion for 55 miles of new fences along the border, short of the $5.7 billion Trump had sought for 234 miles of steel walls. At his rally in El Paso on Monday night, signs around the arena read, "Finish the wall," as Trump lied to the crowd, claiming construction was already underway.
Today, we started a big, beautiful wall right on the Rio Grande. Right smack on the Rio Grande.
Well, that calls for some fact-checking. So let's listen to Shepard Smith, who actually tells the truth on Fox.
A bipartisan deal on border security. The Senate Majority Leader, the Republican Mitch McConnell, calls it good news. His Democratic counterpart, Chuck Schumer, calls it a path forward. Some more conservative Republicans are crying foul. But President Trump, are you happy?
Am I happy at first glance? I just got to see it. The answer is no, I'm not. I'm not happy. But am I happy with where we're going? I'm thrilled. Because we're supplementing things and moving things around, and we're doing things that are fantastic and taking from far less important areas. And the bottom line is we're building a lot of walls.
That's incorrect. He's been saying it for a while now, but it's simply not true. The facts are these. Workers have replaced and repaired sections of the existing wall and fences, but so far they have not built anything new. Construction is set to begin on a 14-mile extension in the Rio Grande Valley later this month. And this just announced deal in Congress could create 55 miles of new fencing and barrier. No wall. That's if it passes in Congress and if the president signs it. And even then, it's 10 miles less than what lawmakers offered the White House last year, long before the government shutdown. Still, there is some wiggle room that could allow the president to add more money for his proposed wall and more money for detaining people, presuming, of course, this deal gets done.
A White House official told the Washington Post that Trump sees signing the border deal, if passed by Congress, as the way to avoid another shutdown. But he would also likely pursue an executive order to reallocate federal funds to barrier projects. The budget deal must pass by Friday at midnight to avoid another shutdown, and Congress is scheduled to be out next week for the President's Day holiday. The Violence Against Women Act was extended as part of the last government funding bill, and it expires Friday. Republicans have pushed for a straight, clean extension as part of this bill. Democrats want to deal with the Violence Against Women Act separately. They have their own bill. But if it's not extended before Friday, it will lapse. CNN on Tuesday night proved it learned nothing from its coverage of the 2016 presidential elections and for some reason held a town hall event in Houston with former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, who hasn't even declared his candidacy yet, but has said he'd run as a centrist independent. Schultz criticized progressive tax increases and called the Green New Deal plan immoral, without offering specifics on how he'd address those issues differently. He also refused to commit to selling his Starbucks shares if he were to be elected president. When pressed, Schultz wouldn't say he'd drop out of the race if polls showed his candidacy was helping Trump. Schultz was panned online for his comments regarding Starbucks' handling of a racial profiling incident in Philadelphia last year.
Starbucks is a diverse organization, and we want to do everything we can. It was a terrible moment for the company. It's not something that we're going to forget, and it's something that we learned a great deal from, and we're still learning it about. And I would just say, as somebody who grew up in a very diverse background as a young boy in the projects, I didn't see color as a young boy. And I honestly don't see color now. And I want to do everything I can in terms of the character and the dignity of what it means to be the President of the United States.
The internet quickly pointed out that "I don't see color" was a running Stephen Colbert gag.
I want to say that I am not a racist. I don't even see race, not even my own. People tell me I'm white, and I believe them because I just devoted 6 minutes to explaining how I'm not a racist.
Thursday marks the first anniversary of the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that left 17 people dead. On Tuesday, Congressman Ted Deutsch, who represents that district, and Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey introduced a bill banning any gun magazine that exceeds 10 rounds of ammunition. During a news conference on Capitol Hill, the Democratic legislators described the bill as one step in a process of passing individual gun control measures instead of a big comprehensive package. On another front, the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday marks up the Bipartisan Background Checks Act of 2019, which requires background checks on all firearm sales.
I got good news.
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 Minutes. Russian lawmakers advanced a proposal Tuesday to create what's been termed a standalone Russian internet, citing national security justifications to push a project that's likely just as much about controlling access to information.
What the Russians are talking about doing is essentially re-architecting the physical infrastructure of the internet, the actual wires and routers that carry the information, so that they would go through specific choke points that would be controlled by the Russians.
Chris Calabrese is the vice president of policy at the Center for Democracy and Technology.
This is part of a broader effort to essentially allow the Russians to cut themselves off from the broader internet if they want to. And it seems to also be part of a broader effort to impose greater censorship on the Russian internet.
While proponents of the Russian internet project say it would protect the country from being cut off from the web amid a hypothetical U.S. blackout, the plan would also block Russian internet users from anonymizing their identity and location using virtual private networks, a key tool used to access uncensored content and enable private communication.
This is clearly an effort to emulate the Chinese government, which has become very successful in limiting the types of sites that their citizens can see. For example, information on Tiananmen Square, while still offering what we would think of as the regular benefits of the internet.
While China's Great Firewall is the world's most sophisticated system of internet governance, it's technologically complex, expensive, and the result of years of painstaking central planning. And while China's firewall is largely a software achievement, the Russian plan entails the complex work of reimagining the internet's physical design. For a cash-strapped government already struggling to build pipelines, the Russian internet may well end up as an ambitious but unworkable pipe dream. Luke Vargas, New York.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid me of this priest? Well, we begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 32 degrees. The Weather Underground says we have a rain shower, but as I look out of the porthole here from the mothership at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy here in Rogue River, there is copious amounts of snow falling, and the copious amounts of snow have fallen. It is piled up, and it is about a half a foot because I went out there and stepped in it. So, looks like we're going to be getting a little higher in temperature, maybe the low 40s today. Expecting a quarter of an inch of rain today. About a little more than a third of an inch of rain tonight, with about a third tomorrow. But we are in an active winter storm watch, and it is a wintry mix. Right now, big fluffy flakes of snow coming to the ground, piling up, though a little bit of melt too. So we'll see how that... It's beautiful. I got to tell you, it's absolutely beautiful. Looks like one of those Kincaid paintings. No wonder I'm depressed. All right. Pollen is rated at none. Air quality index is down to 9 parts per million, and that's in a pretty darn good range. Daytime UV index is low at 2, but with this much snow, you'd think it'd be even at 1. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.34 inches. Visibility is down to 2 miles. And relative humidity is 100%. Of course it is. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 53 and fair. Paris is 49 and sunny. Rome is 56 and sunny. The Spanish Steps in 50-degree weather. Oh, God, I love it. Kiev is 32 degrees and fair. Kabul is 37 with a light drizzle. Hong Kong is 66 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 42 and mostly cloudy with a weather advisory, and it is a dry air advisory. Ouch, that again. I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. And after Tokyo, we then go to Sydney, Australia, where it is 69 and partly cloudy. I should mention, since we're now back on the west coast of the United States, our winds are light and variable here in Rogue River out of the west, but they are going to shift from out of the east. I don't know how that's going to be bringing warmer air. We're going to get some more snow. Just saying. Because San Francisco right now is 47 degrees with a light rain. They have a weather advisory. Let me guess what it's going to be. Yeah, high wind warning, because when our winds shift out of the east, it's going to be 5 to 10 miles per hour as sustained winds with gusts over 40, and gale or high wind warning throughout the Bay Area. And their gusts are going to be coming, their whole winds are going to be coming out of the northeast. And of course, with high winds, their gusts could pop over 70, maybe. Pop and top, indeed. All right, finishing up after San Francisco is New York, which is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny with their own gale warning. Hold on to your top hats, button up that top button. Stay warm. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. This first amuse-bouche is brought to us by Dominic Jackson out of a Raw Story. And Raw Story, I'm sorry, you have to turn off your ad block, and then everything gets skippy on you. Thanks, Raw Story. And I couldn't get this particular article out of Alternet, because Raw Story and Alternet are teamed up. But still, I like to go to Raw Story anyway, because Sarah Burris works there. Well, I also wanted to mention real quick, Howard Schultz says that he doesn't see color. Well, of course not. That's how you can look right through people as if they don't exist. I don't see you. I don't even care. I can't care about what I don't see. Well, Sandy Creek High School principal saw a lot, and she was punished for it. Her name is Emily Wemmer, and she was fired from her position after making critical comments about the MAGA-infused culture at the school. In a private Facebook message that was hacked and leaked, Wemmer talked about how girls are treated at the school and the MAGA hat-wearing culture. And now she's up in Syracuse, New York, upstate New York. Wemmer and her supporters said that she was just trying to encourage the girls at the school. This is a very traditional conservative district, Wemmer wrote. I have learned myself that men feel totally entitled to manhandle women whenever. I wonder what she means by that. What happens in the teacher's lounge stays in the teacher's lounge. Girls are also expected to be passive. Well, I guess that's why she's not principal anymore. If I don't teach my girls anything else, I hope that it is that they can live independently and choose if they want to be in a relationship or not. The mama bear comes out in me when I hear reports of abuse like I heard today. She said in another post, even if some males will try the intimidation BS, I've been asked if I'm a lesbian or married, as if those are the only possibilities for a woman. She also wrote, It's hard when you're fighting against an entrenched conservative MAGA hat-wearing culture. Well, I guess that was a little too much for the brown shirts in that school district, wouldn't you say? The good Germans. I am also responsible for the boys and need to be their advocate, she said. I need to figure out ways to teach them what's appropriate before it becomes a legal issue. Uh-oh. That's left up to the parents to teach them how to be bullies, not up to the principal of the school to keep them from being so. Weimer issued a statement saying that her comments were misinterpreted. I don't know what that means. I allowed my personal political beliefs to overshadow that message, which ultimately is that I care deeply for the welfare and success of Sandy Creek students, she wrote. Maureen Shield, a retired high school principal, will serve as interim principal until this harpy is hustled out of town.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Oliver Willis of Share Blue Media brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Trump administration is considering taking money that was supposed to be used to build houses for military families and use it to build Trump's racist border wall instead. Well, what I would say, why not put the housing as part of the border wall? You know, I mean, just make the houses, their back walls or whatever, as part of the border wall. You have all these domiciles of like a standing army right along the border, which would be in total violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, but who cares when you're a mobster? The plan would shift money from Department of Defense funds slated for military construction, including family housing and infrastructure for military bases, to Trump's useless pet project that most Americans don't want. Also, I thought it was only Congress that could appropriate funds. He gets to move them around willy-nilly. Well, of course they can. Why else would a person like Oliver North have had a shop in the basement of the White House as a shadow government, a real shadow government? They know all about him. Political reports that Trump Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney has come up with the idea as a sneaky way, of course he does, know all the sneaky ways to circumvent Congress, which has refused to fund Trump's wall and to avoid invoking a national emergency, which Trump has threatened to do if he didn't get his way. Now, the plan would shift Department of Defense funds, yes, of course, into these pet projects from the military, but it would also take money away from disaster relief funds for California and Puerto Rico. And that would unfortunately be par for the course for Trump, who has previously cut aid to Puerto Rico, even as they continue to recover from Hurricane Maria. Now, Mulvaney hinted at the plot in a Sunday interview on NBC's Meet the Press. Great. That's one way to announce it, because you're not going to get any pushback. There's pots of money where all presidents have access to without a national emergency, he said. We've been saving up for so long. I mean, look, there was a fund still left over from Reagan. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. So stay tuned, and we'll meet up tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Okay, so stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365 for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here, right here tomorrow, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.